of these 5 steps, 3 of them actually happen before we put ink on the paper, and 2 of them happen as we draw. But we can't do the second 2 well if we haven't done the first 3 properly. And there's even just a point that's not one of these 5 steps before we start. And that's the general principle, that when I draw a tree that I have in front of me or a reference for, I strongly base it on the actual tree. I try and draw the tree in the reference as closely as I can. However, I recognize that there's lots of room for artistic license also with a tree. And I find that if I aim to draw what's there, but I don't go crazy about it and I adapt for how it turns out as I go as well, I end up both with a better looking tree and a better drawing experience. But the first thing I do is I firstly pay attention to where the light is coming from. A tree is a 3-dimensional form. It's not a flat shape, and it's an irregular 3-dimensional form. And so the light coming down from from the sun, of course, a given fixed place, is going to hit and highlight different parts of the canopy. It's also going to mean that certain parts of the canopy are in shade, and depending on the shape of the canopy, an awful lot could be in shade, as is the case with this example. So I can't draw what I haven't seen, and because I'm going to be doing little bits of shade and shadow bit by bit, I need to bear in mind the overall spread of the light areas and the dark areas and where they are, and particularly where the transition points are. So that going bit by bit, I don't end up creating something that doesn't make sense as a whole. And if you find my videos interesting, please, why not subscribe and hit the like button for this particular one while you're at it. So the second thing I do then is I visualize the 3-dimensional form of this canopy. I look to see exactly what parts are coming towards me, what parts are moving away from me, what parts are sort of in the middle, and I try and get a sense of how far the furthest ones are and how close the closest ones are. Because I want to try and capture that sense of roundness, or of some branches perhaps almost reaching overhead of where I'm standing and others going off, moving away from me. And maybe, not in this case, but maybe some of them I'm actually seeing stretching out in the opposite direction through a gap in the canopy. That's particularly common with the eucalyptus, with the gum trees that are all around me here in Australia. So really get a sense of where these parts of the canopy are coming towards or away from me. Now, the third important point is that look at this particular tree, because I want to try and capture something about this particular tree. So I need to look at its leaf size. I need to look at how the leaves are grouped together, what sort of silhouette edge they create, the way they cast shadows. And I need to pay attention to the distance I am from them as well. With trees, it's really important that we don't put marks on the paper that will suggest an actual leaf size unless we are drawing the leaves in scale to each other. So with a very large tree, a very large leafed tree that we see close up, we might actually draw some leaves. But generally, if we put marks on the paper that suggest actual leaves, it usually makes the tree look smaller than it really is. So I need to control my marks as well. So these are the 3 steps that, in a sense, we think about before we put ink on the paper. You're watching this drawing at half as fast again. So it's not that much faster than my actual real-time drawing speed. And I'm drawing this with a 0.2 fine liner. Now, the edges are important, the silhouette edges, or the edges of where the light changes strongly from very bright to very dark, because our brain goes to those very easily and very quickly when we look at the scene to capture information, to work out what am I looking at and how is it happening in this instance. So I need to pay attention to my edges and try to avoid doing a heavy continuous outline, even if I make it all wiggly and bumpy to represent the leaves, individual leaves, it's not a realistic look. And this is a three-dimensional form, and the silhouette isn't even always at the same distance. Where we lose sight of one clump of leaves might be closer or further than, if you like, the next clump of leaves that visually join onto it. But if we were to walk around the tree, would be quite separate from each other, if you get what I mean. We really want to draw trees that feel three-dimensional. And the problem with a photo is it flattens everything and makes everything look very flat. It creates the same level of detail over things that in life we don't see with the same level of detail. So I want to try and improve on that particular weakness of a photo in my drawing if I possibly can. And that brings us to the last step of this tree drawing method, which, when I say it, you'll realize is obviously the most important. And that's that hatching is an incredibly effective way to draw a tree. By hatching, of course, we mean grouping short lines together very closely to create, in effect, a grayscale. And when we look at this tree, what we see, and particularly if we were to take the color out, and it's always a helpful thing to do if you have your reference as a digital reference, is to desaturate it so we just see it in black and white, and to see that I have various shapes that move from darker to lighter to darker to lighter to very light to very dark, some with a steady transition from one value to the other, others almost a straight line from the darkest to the lightest. And I want to capture all of this detail in my hatching. And so hatching is not just a great way to learn to draw trees, but drawing trees is a great way to learn the potential, the possibilities of hatching. And because hatching is so problematic for so many people when they learn to draw, I would really recommend drawing trees for the opportunity to hatch the canopies and to really discover the possibilities. And an important thing to realize is that hatching doesn't just produce values, lights and darks, but it also can give us a sense of the surface three-dimensionality, of the shape of the surface. I use this same principle when I'm drawing rocks in the Australian bush that are rounded or convex or concave, with a sharp line in between if the rock's been broken. That I can not just represent the shadows, but also the way the rock curves and changes direction by molding my hatching in an approximate way, not an exact way, but by molding my hatching to follow the curve of the surface as it looks from my particular viewing position. Now I'm doing the same thing now with the tree canopy, but I'm also being careful with my hatch lines as to where they finish, whether they're suggesting the silhouette edge of the canopy, whether they're suggesting a very visually quite sharp and pronounced transition from very dark to very light, or whether it's a part of the canopy where we're moving from darker to lighter by degrees, or vice versa. And I talked earlier about visualizing the overall three-dimensionality of the canopy. And I'm also now using that to be curving my hatching around the whole drawing. I started in the middle because I find that's the place that gives me greatest scale consistency, greatest keeping everything in proportion. If I move out in each direction, if I'm a little bit out, I only do, if you like, half the tree in any one direction before I have to stop. Whereas if I start at one end or the bottom and work up, I can be getting more and more out of scale. So you can see here now how I'm working my edges by where I finish the canopy with the hatching. And if you think back to when I first started, and if you missed this, it's worth going back to see it. I basically did a series of dotted lines to represent my visualization of where the canopy at that point in the drawing was finishing. Because I find those dots are all hidden in my hatching, because my hatch marks come up vertically, if they don't actually meet on a dot, and I don't try to make them do that, sometimes they just do. But even if they don't, the dots become marks that help to give a lovely kind of diffuse feeling at that point. But now I'm working on my hatching. And again, this is where I'm now bringing back the overall lighting, that first thing we talked about. I want to make sure that there are no bits in sunlight that logically can't really be in sunlight with other bits that aren't in sunlight. I'm looking at the overall shade and shadow, and I'm trying to now get consistency. Now I can't make dark areas light again, so I can only do this by making lighter areas darker. And so we want to make sure we don't go too dark too quickly, too early. Because by holding back on going really dark and taking the darkness everywhere we think it's going to be, the darker values, I then give myself flexibility in the latter part of the drawing, and this is certainly that part of the drawing, to really finesse the light to dark transitions and to really develop a consistency. I have still space to go darker in some parts to heighten whatever form I'm trying to show. And the thing I do right at the end, not sure whether I've actually done it because I wasn't watching while I was talking, but in the center of the tree, I've put marks around the top of the clumps of foliage, stronger than dots, to help accentuate the parts of the foliage that are closer to us and have a harder edge of light to dark, a more contrasting transition. And then I know I'm doing this now. That's what I'm doing at this point. And that, because closer things we see in more detail, my hope is that it gives the sense that these central areas really are closer. They feel closer because of the way I've manipulated my mark making over the overall. And they feel closer than the edges on the actual silhouette edge of the tree, because they're all some distance further away from me on a large tree than the branches in the center coming towards me are. And a little bit now of just final adjustments with the values, making some of the lighter areas still white areas, just a little bit grayscale, but not too grayscale, to get greater variation in the three-dimensionality of what I'm doing. And that little fence down below, some shadow on the ground, that's great just for giving a bit of context, which also helps us to appreciate the size, because that fence is something that we recognize. I hope you give this a go. There's a link in the description that will take you to this reference photo that's on my channel post page. Trees are wonderful subjects to draw, and we learn so many skills and so much about mark making in drawing them. So I hope you don't shy away simply because they can be difficult at the start. Give it a go. Learn all the things we learn about hatching and drawing trees when we do. But in the end, however you draw them, whatever you draw, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.